The uniform still hangs in the closet, crisp and untouched, a silent reminder of a chapter one believed was temporarily closed. My name is Sergeant John Miller, and for the last 12 months, a distant desert was the only horizon I knew. Through the heat, the sandstorms, and the endless nights, one image kept me steady. The picture home. I'd imagine the white picket fence, the sound of my 2 kids laughing in the yard. I'd see my wife, Sarah, tending to her rose bushes while our son Leo chased our golden retriever, Buddy, across the grass. That image was my compass, my reason to push forward. Coming home is supposed to mean the fighting is over. You step off the plane, breathe in familiar air, and everything clicks back into place. That's what I expected. But for me, the real battle hadn't even started yet. The first hint that something was off came quietly. In the final weeks of my deployment, Sarah's emails grew shorter and less frequent. She said she was busy with the kids and a new part-time job she'd picked up to help with expenses. I told myself not to read too much into it. Communication during deployment is never perfect. Still, a tight knot began forming in my stomach. When my boots finally hit American soil, I searched the crowd for handmade signs and waving arms. I expected to see my kids jumping up and down, Sarah smiling through happy tears. Instead, my phone buzzed with a message. Meet us at my sister's place. It's complicated. I love you. Complicated. That single word chilled me more than any desert night ever had. I grabbed a cab, my duffel bag feeling heavier with every mile. When my sister-in-law opened the door, Sarah rushed into my arms, shaking with sobs. Leo and Mia wrapped themselves around my legs, burying their faces in my uniform. They were safe. They were here. That was what mattered most. But as I looked around the small, crowded living room, a realization settled in. Suitcases lined the wall. Toys were stacked in corners. This wasn't a short visit. They were living here. Later that night, once the kids were asleep, Sarah told me everything. It began with a layoff. The company she worked for downsized, and her position was eliminated. She searched for new work, but opportunities were scarce. Then Mia got pneumonia, and the medical bills piled up faster than Sarah could manage. She drained our savings trying to keep everything afloat. When the mortgage payments started slipping, she thought she could catch up before I returned. She didn't want to burden me while I was overseas. She believed she could fix it. The bank didn't wait. While I was deployed, serving my country, an eviction notice arrived at our front door. 2 weeks before I was due home, my family was forced out. The house we built our lives in was foreclosed and sold at auction to a developer. The word foreclosure hit like a punch to the chest. That home held every birthday, every holiday, every pencil mark on the doorframe tracking our kids' height. And now it was gone. Anger surged through me, followed by a wave of helplessness I wasn't trained to handle. On the battlefield, there's an enemy you can see, a mission you can plan for. This was different. This was paperwork, legal language, deadlines, and a system that felt cold and immovable. The next morning, I drove back to our old street. I had to see it for myself. My pulse pounded as I turned the corner. There it stood, our house. But it wasn't ours anymore. A tall construction fence wrapped around the property. A bold sign out front announced a new luxury condo development. Demolition was coming soon. A bulldozer sat parked where our front lawn used to be. I stood there staring at it, feeling more disoriented than I ever had during patrol overseas. I had protected my country, but I couldn't protect my own home. The guilt pressed down on me until it was hard to breathe. For days, I moved through life like a shadow. I called the bank, legal aid offices, anyone who would take my call. Every answer was the same. I'm sorry, Sergeant, but the property was legally sold. Then my training kicked in. You don't surrender. You assess. You adapt. You overcome. I reached out to my old unit and told my former platoon leader, Captain Evans, what had happened. He didn't give me sympathy. He gave me direction. John, he said, you're not fighting this alone. Let's make some noise. He connected me with a local veterans advocacy group run by a retired Marine named Gus. Gus was relentless. He'd seen too many service members return home to financial ruin. They assume you'll be too exhausted to push back, he told me. Let's prove them wrong. Gus helped me untangle the legal mess. He introduced me to a pro bono attorney who specialized in military housing protections. She discovered something critical: a federal law that shields active duty service members from certain foreclosures. Because the process had begun and concluded while I was deployed, there was a possibility we could challenge it. It wasn't guaranteed, but it was a chance. At the same time, Gus took our story public. He contacted a local news reporter, and soon a headline aired on the evening broadcast: "Soldier serves overseas, family loses home." The reaction was immediate. Outrage spread quickly. My phone lit up with calls from strangers offering spare rooms, job leads for Sarah, and simple words of encouragement. The community responded in a way I never imagined. A church organized a fundraiser. Local businesses reached out to Sarah with interviews. The developer who had purchased our home suddenly wanted a meeting. The negative publicity was hurting his reputation. He wasn't some cartoon villain, just a businessman who had bought property at auction. But now our faces were attached to the transaction. We met in a sterile conference room. On one side sat the developer and his attorneys. On our side, it was me, my pro bono lawyer, and Gus, steady as a stone wall. Our attorney outlined the legal grounds for challenging the foreclosure. The developer's lawyers pushed back. But the real pressure didn't come from statutes. It came from public opinion. Eventually, an agreement was reached to repair his public image. The developer agreed to sell the house back to us for the exact price he had paid at auction. It was still more money than we had. That's when the community stepped in again. The church fundraiser, combined with donations that had flowed to the veterans group, covered the down payment. The advocacy organization helped us secure a manageable mortgage through a veteran-friendly credit union. The day we walked back inside felt unreal. The rooms were empty, stripped bare, but they belonged to us again. The height marks on the doorframe were still there. Sarah and I stood in the middle of the living room and held each other as months of fear and uncertainty finally lifted. The kids ran down the hallway, their laughter filling the space and bringing it back to life. This experience taught me something I'll never forget. The hardest battles aren't always fought overseas. Sometimes they're fought at home. It showed me the strength of my wife, who carried the weight alone for as long as she could. And it reminded me that community isn't just a word. It's a lifeline, a shield, a force stronger than any regiment. My uniform still hangs in the closet. But now, when I see it, I don't just think about service abroad. I think about the fight we won here. I think about strangers who became allies, and a neighborhood that refused to let us fall. We're home again, and this time we're staying. Thank you for listening to our story. If you or a veteran you know is facing hardship, remember that help exists. Veterans advocacy groups and legal aid organizations can make a life-changing difference. Never hesitate to reach out. Please like this video and subscribe for more stories of resilience and hope